Hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a little astrology 101. I'm very excited for this video. It was actually inspired by a podcast conversation that I had with Eve Mary, who is an evolutionary astrologer. So if you're interested in hearing a lot more about this topic straight from an astrologer, I highly recommend checking out that episode. I'll link it down below for you because it was full of so much good information. But I basically wanted to give you sort of an astrology 101 little video recap here because this is a topic that I love talking about. I find it so much fun, and I know not everybody's into astrology, but that's okay because we're into it here and we're gonna talk about it. All right, so let's just hop right into it. So one of the first things that I actually learned when I started getting into astrology was that we actually have 3 signs. Now, most people know their sun sign. That's if someone were to ask you, what's your sign? You would say, oh, I'm a Virgo, I'm a Gemini, I'm a whatever. That's your sun sign. But we actually have 2 more. So we have a rising or an ascendant sign, and then we also have a moon sign. And the way Eve described it on the podcast episode, which I thought was so good, was that it's kind of, like an onion. So you have your onion, and sort of on that outer layer, that's where you have your rising or your ascendant. Then once you start peeling back the layers a little bit, you have your sun sign. And then when you keep peeling, and more at the core, that's where you get your moon sign. So they all play a different role in your chart and how they affect you as a person as well. So your sun sign is more of like that central part of your nature. And a way Eve described it, which I also really, really loved, was to describe your sun sign as a verb rather than a noun. So most people, like for instance, I'm a Gemini, so I would say, oh, I am a Gemini, but Eve says to say it as a verb instead. So I would say, I must Gemini, okay? So when you think of it that way, it sort of helps grasp what your sun sign is a little bit more. Your sun sign is sort of that thing that we're constantly evolving into our entire lives, and it's where we feel the most fulfilled, if that makes sense. When we're aligning with our sun sign, that's when we are taking care of our soul's energy the most. It's something that we're constantly, building and evolving into throughout our lifetime. Then we move on to the rising, also known as the ascendant. So this is that outer layer of the onion, and that's sort of the mask that you put on to face the world with, the image that we portray to the world, and it's also kind of the lens that we see the world through. And then we move on to the moon sign. So the moon sign is sort of like your deep inner emotional being, and it's how we understand our emotions. So it's the basis of our instinctual personality, and it really is a key player in all of our birth charts. So we often see ourselves as our moon signs, and it speaks to how we like to be nurtured in life as well. Now, in astrology, so I'm going to leave a link down below where you can pull up your birth chart for free. So you do need to know your exact birth time if you do want an accurate chart. So you need to know the location of your birth, the time of your birth, and obviously the day of your birth. And you can pull up a birth chart and sort of see where all of your planets land and get that bird's eye view, that snapshot of the sky, the exact moment that you were born. So in astrology, on your birth chart, there are 12 houses. So each of the houses is they act as a different area of your life. So for instance, the first house is the house of self. Then you have your material life, the communication, you have your home life, the house of creativity, the house of health and service, relationships, death and transformation. You have travel and spirituality, you have your career, your life mission, friendships and social circles. Then you also have dreams and the unconscious. So if you're looking at your chart and say, you have a lot of your planets lining up in a specific house in your chart. So that's sort of an area of your life that is going to, consistently pop up throughout your lifetime, or is going to have a lot of emphasis throughout your life. And depending on where your planets land, it's also going to affect how things are showing up in your life as well. So you can kind of like start deep diving into your chart and seeing how things play out. And it's just a really fun tool for self-awareness. That's what I like to use it for. So for an example, whichever house your moon lands in, that's going to be an area of your life that you may have a lot of emotional needs. So the houses are the where. So where are things showing up in your life? The planets are the what. And then the signs throughout your chart are the how things are going to be showing up. So just as an example, Mercury is the sign of communication. So depending on which house and which sign your Mercury lands in, that's going to affect how you communicate in life. So you can start by, Googling Mercury, Mercury in Aquarius or Mercury in the 12th house, and you can start to see the traits or the effects of what that means to have that planet in those specific houses and signs. So I'll give another example of another planet. So for example, Venus. Venus is like love and relationships. So if you take a look at where Venus lands in your chart, you can get an idea of how that sort of thing starts manifesting in your life. And another thing Eve said that I thought was super interesting was to take note of the element in which the sign or in which the planet falls in. So say, your Venus falls in an air sign, so either like a Gemini or an Aquarius or something like that, then that's super important to note because that's going to affect how those love and relationships start to manifest within your life. If it's in an air sign, you're probably going to connect with someone through your mind first. You like to connect intellectually and through communication, and that's the sort of thing that pulls at your heartstrings. So I'll just quickly list out the planets so you can see them all and what each of them sort of mean. And in astrology, we refer to the sun and the moon as planets, but they all have their own meaning, which you can see here, and they are also all ruled by a sign. Lastly, I did want to touch on the 4 elements in astrology. So as I mentioned, before, Eve really said that the elements do play a super important role, especially when you are reading your chart. So there are 4 elements. There's earth, air, fire, and water. And each element has 3 signs attached to it. Earth is more of that practical sign. They like to make things happen. They want to feel things. They're very into their body and they like to build. They like to have that tangible thing. It's not just theory. Then we move into an air sign. So air is very cerebral. They tend to operate more from the mind. They love to communicate. They're interested in people and humanities, and they tend to be a little bit more objective. Then we have the fire signs. So fire is very enthusiastic. They're inspiring. They're instinctive. They're often quite warm and inspiring to other people, and there's often a strong creative force with fire. And lastly, of course, water. So water tends to be a little bit more subjective, and they are more emotional, intuitive, sensitive, and empathetic. So these are just some of the basic aspects of astrology. So if you did want to dive a little bit deeper, definitely recommend checking out the full podcast episode. I mean, we chatted for almost an hour, so it was really, really good. Yeah, so with all of this information, I mean, you can start breaking it down a little bit, pull up your chart, see where your planets land, see what houses they're in, see which sign they're in, what element it is as well. And you can start to sort of piece together things and see how things naturally manifest in your life as well. Yeah, it's really fun to just start jotting down notes and, poke around within your chart and have some fun with it because, I don't know, I love looking at my chart and diving a little bit deeper. And when I first got my chart read, Eve actually read my chart in 2019. I was blown away because everything she was saying, I was like, how is this actually my life? My chart just reflected my life so much, and a lot of those, traits and the way I am and how I do things were laid out right in front of me, and having her, expert opinion going through everything it was such a cool experience, and it really was a very cool tool for self-awareness for me, which is why I find it fun and valuable, but I know it's not everybody's thing, but whatever. So yeah, I really do hope you enjoyed this video. I'll also leave Eve's information down below. She does readings globally. She does it virtually as well. So if you wanted to even get your chart read by a professional, super, super fun. But otherwise, I will catch you in my next video. Bye.